Hi, everyone, and welcome back to 2W Conversations, the podcast where eavesdropping on us isn't only okay, but encouraged. Today we're joined by two guests ready to talk about backups and disaster recovery, how they work together, the important role they play in the business world, and how the cloud has taken these processes to the next level. Guest number one, you know him. He refers to himself as a veteran in terms of this podcast. Mark, our president and CEO here at 2W.
Hi, everybody.
Then our second guest, calling all the way from, I believe, North Carolina. You might know him from a popular LinkedIn series, the MSP Experience Lounge, VP of Marketing over at Axcient, Bryce.
Hey, everybody.
Bryce, thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with us today. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself and then what Axcient's all about to get started?
Absolutely. Not too much more to share. Coming to you all the way from the suburb of Raleigh. I'm in Apex, North Carolina. You nailed that, Danielle. Thank you. And great to be back with you, Mark. Of course, you're a super valued partner of Axcient, and we are a 5,000 partner strong business continuity and disaster recovery solution based out of Denver, Colorado, with remote folks all over the place. And we sell to MSPs only. We are 100% in the channel, and we're really just helping to spread the word about our mission, which is to cure data loss, and anything that can do that, and ourselves included, is what gets us up in the morning.
Awesome. Yeah, for those who don't know, we've been partners with Axcient for around 10 years now, I think, right, Mark?
Yeah, probably. 2014, 2015, something like that.
There.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of clients using their solutions, and it's been a great partnership. So we're really ecstatic to finally have them on this podcast. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Backups and disaster recovery are like Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. While many are familiar with one, the other isn't discussed as frequently. So I want to start by asking you, Bryce, if you can explain at a pretty high level how these two terms are different and then why they both matter.
Absolutely. We have a saying that amateurs back up and professionals recover, and that can maybe put a lens on it. And so I think part of it is owing to the evolution of business and the speed of businesses post-digital transformation. We all know how to back up data and how to put it somewhere for safekeeping, even like a USB drive in a fire-safe chest, if you can think about it that way. But what if you needed that information and all of your critical business data at the drop of a hat in an instant to really be able to fully recover from a massive disaster that could wipe out, even dozens of machines at a time, like a fire or a ransomware attack, or just complete incompetence in human error, which we'll get to, I think, at some point. Yes. And then you have an actual disaster recovery, which is making the data that you backed up actionable in a very reasonable point of time so that your business doesn't suffer.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that from a general public perspective, that backups are just well known. I mean, we get so many notifications about backups, whether it's on our iPhone or desktop, and it's about our backup being completed or we're in need of another backup. But we don't get that same exposure to disaster recovery, or if we do, we don't recognize that that's what's happening. So that's why we're here today, to hopefully help provide some substance around the disaster recovery side of it all. So I thought we'd start by painting a picture about how it looked back in, I don't know if 2000 would be the right benchmark.
You mean the olden days?
Yeah. Before extensive backup and disaster recovery plans were in place, what did organizations do? I feel like it was chaotic.
Well, I think you had, and interestingly, you still do in some cases, and it scares the heck out of me when we run into it. But you had it was mostly a manual process, right? I mean, historically, it was a tape-type backup, but also there were, removable drives that you would back up your data on, and then somebody would back them up on a Friday and then take them home. And then, they would rotate week over week over week. And, that's just fraught with potential danger. You miss a week, you're only you're a week behind. Sometimes a week is, if you lose a week's worth of data, it's like losing, all of it sometimes.
Right.
And so I think, back when it was a real manual process, it wasn't verifiable. It wasn't really reliable, and it was just super manual.
everything's evolved. I mean, everything's just gotten better and cheaper and faster over time. But I guess in the security space, and I'm speaking broadly here, but in the data protection industry, we are in the security space. That's what it's for. Now you all of a sudden have threat actors that is a true game of cat and mouse. Of as much as we want to evolve and can evolve the technology to make business outcomes better, now you have, besides natural disasters, which we kind of know about and don't necessarily tend to evolve at exponential rates like human and AI driven malfeasances can. You can sort of get ahead of the former, you can't get ahead of the latter, in the sense of now you have bad actors really flexing more capabilities, exploiting vulnerabilities, zero-day exploits, all kinds of things all up and down your value chain. And now all of a sudden you need a different solution than your sort of former status quo, as Mark said, and the evolution, from different types of media to more solid state drives or more secure on-prem to more migrations to the cloud. The datascape, as I like to call it, the data landscape, has evolved and the capabilities have evolved too, but unfortunately so have the bad actors that want to exploit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. So what key factors are usually considered? Like, what do these conversations look like?
I think the key is how long can you get by without this information? Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the first thing how valuable is this to you? What happens to your business if it's lost, regardless of how it's lost? And I'm sure we'll tell some horror stories here
Yes,
in a little bit, but it's really, that's the first conversation to have, is what happens if this goes away and how long can you survive without it? And there's a Microsoft statistic out there that it may be a little old, but I'm sure it's just as true as ever, is most small businesses that have a catastrophic data failure are out of business within 3 years. And that is a very real situation, whether it's by a bad actor or a natural disaster or, the real threat to your network, which is the human that sits between the chair and the keyboard.
Yeah, so you mentioned business continuity and figuring out what key aspects of your business you can't function without for an X period of time. So what specific data sets are you referring to?
Well, certainly it's your line of business software, mm-hmm. right? Whether it's an ERP system or whatever runs your business. There's also the files, the current active files. There's the historical files.
Now it's almost the conversations and the way you do business are just as important to, like you said, the line of business application themselves of the files. We historically have had a lot of success helping our partners out with the file servers and with really emphasizing your recovery time objectives. We'll talk about RTOs, I'm sure, in a minute, and recovery point objectives around those files. And to your point, a week out of business, your whole business could have changed in a week these days. And so what time periods that you want to optimize towards. But now even, as things go to the cloud and we want to tell ourselves that things such as OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams conversations and Slacks are all safe, there's no guarantee on the part of those solution providers to keep your data safe or invulnerable. And so now more and more the collaboration aspect is a wealth of data in itself.
Well, that's a really good point, because as you start to, you have all these Teams chats or Slack mm-hmm. chats or whatever. There's documents attached to that, and I can't tell you how many clients, and well, I'm kind of guilty of this too, but you use Outlook as your filing system sometimes. And so you have all those attachments that sit there, and whether they eventually end up in SharePoint or OneDrive or whatever, the fact of the matter is they are at risk. They're at risk from all the same, the same problems that we were talking about before, whether it be a bad actor or incompetence or just a data failure.
Yeah, email for me was one of those things that I didn't think about as being something that's business critical to get up and running again. But if I think about it in terms of how many emails I have sitting there that I have yet to even open, yet to take the action, yet to reply to, and if I lost all of those, that would cause a lot more harm than people may think off the bat.
No doubt.
So now the question is why? Why do you still think that people aren't buying into this whole disaster recovery thing?
I think it's naivete that is the problem, right? People think, well, our data we don't do anything that important. It's not that big a deal, or it'll be fine. It's backed up, in my Outlook or my Exchange, or it's backed up in 365. And I don't think people really realize how at risk they are from that, as well as the ransomware part. Mm-hmm. I mean, the backup piece, the fact of the matter is the backup piece in your business strategy is probably the best security blanket you can do. And if you don't have something that's good there, you're at real risk of losing it all.
So you both mentioned at one point the cloud and how that's one of the evolutions we've been seeing in the tech industry as a whole. So how are cloud backups being integrated with traditional on-premise backup solutions?
Well, Bryce, take that, because Axcient's doing some really neat things in integrating the kind of those two entities.
Yeah, and again, this is not a pitch whatsoever, but we are proud of the fact that we offer things as a really flexible solution. And so with our X360 Recover product, we like to say we offered it in two flavors. You can do the on-premises style, and the industry jargon is you have a BDR appliance. So just think of that as, if you're backing up your iPhone, you're backing up or your phone, you're backing up to a PC or to another device. It's kind of like that extra device that has a lot of storage capability that's able to take things and keep it safe and nearby. And then when you need to recover, when you need to restore things, it's right there and you plug it in. It's going to go really fast. And it's not dependent on an internet speed or any bandwidth or any download, because you have the data right next to the thing you're trying to restore to. And that's great. And we can talk about all the advantages of that. And for some, they want to do the other flavor of X360 Recover, which is the direct to cloud, or D2C offering. And the cool thing for the MSP owner or tech, or really anyone in that space, is it's the same price per license. We really don't care how you're doing it. And so if you have certain clients who want to do it a certain way and others who want to do it a different way, it is one singular platform. That's one screen for you to manage all of your devices and all of your data and all the restores and recoveries that you would want to do from one place. It's really flexible of how you want to do it. So the cloud option there is the D2C for X360 Recover. As we go back to that conversation around the SaaS aspects of M365, of course, your inbox and your SharePoint, your OneDrive and Teams and things like that, or Google Workspace, if that's more your style, then that's our X360 Cloud offering, and we cover things in that way as well. And again, through the same portal, and you can manage kind of all the data that you're protecting across all of your clients through this single pane of glass that you have visibility to, and really just trying to make it easy for people to see, for them to understand and to have a grip on the data, and really flexible how they want to deploy it. And this client wants that, but that other client doesn't. That's fine. They can do this. And now with the Recover product, we cover Linux and Mac and Windows devices. And you can, again, back that up to our cloud, to our vaults that you have ownership over, or your own private cloud as an MSP, or that BDR locally can be the thing that's really going to help you with fast recoveries for X360 Recover.
What we always tell our clients is that, look, the best way to do this is if you have an appliance on site, that will be your fastest way to recovery, because you can spin up your network essentially from the device. Right. And then taking what's on that device and putting that up into the cloud storage for true disaster recovery, right? So if, I'll give you an example. So we had a client in Florida, hurricane came by, building was fine, roof leaked, roof collapsed directly over the server rack. All of the servers,
which is of course where it's going to collapse onto. Yeah,
exactly. All of the servers literally literally filled up with water, and so we were able to the BDR, the Axcient device, was actually at the bottom of the rack, and that was the only piece of hardware that survived. We were able to spin them back up. I think they were down for about 45 minutes.
Wow.
And then we, then gave us time to go get. Now, you don't want to live that way because its performance isn't great, but it's better than no performance at all, I guess. And so we were then able to bring in another server and then restore from that device. But if that but if that backup device had been damaged, we would have all that stuff written up in the cloud. And so they still would have been fine. It would have probably taken a little longer for us to recover, but it wouldn't have been days and weeks. It'd still be just more multiple hours for the most part.
Right.
Right.
So do we see any of these strategies changing as maybe the on-premise structures start to go away completely? Or is all of our technology pretty set up for that?
No, I think you still have to do this, whether your server sits in an Azure environment or your server sits in a physical environment. You still have to protect and have a disaster recovery type situation, because what's happening now is these bad actors, they get inside your network and they go in and they delete all the backups. So they may be in your network for months, and they'll delete all your backups before they lock down all your files.
Okay.
And they may actually steal your files before they lock down your files. And by having a off-prem air gap solution, it's you protect yourself from that situation. And that situation is going to be there whether you have servers on-prem, no servers on-prem, some hybrid solution. It's this, you've still got the same risk.
That's where air gap is so important, and that exact case is a use case, and we always keep our ear to the ground and listen to MSPs and what they're asking for and what new threats they're seeing, because you guys are the front lines. I mean, you're seeing things in real time of how these bad actors are evolving, and so with air gap, we're able to separate the request to delete something from the mechanics of the deletion itself. And so the data is still protected. Even if they think that they've deleted it, they have not. And with proper authentication within the right time period, you can still get access back to those files. And so, yeah, that particular tactic that you talked about, Mark, is truly insidious. And it was kind of a game changer as that became more and more the norm. And that's exactly one of the many things that air gap is designed particularly to fight against. And back to your earlier point around where things go. I mean, that example of the hurricane is perfect. It's like the BDR somehow survived that horrible accident. And then, but even if it hadn't, there's still that other extra thing that could have been done, which is to spin the servers up in the virtual office in Azure and just have the virtual machines running and taking that on. So it's not to say that, well, then why did we do that in the first place if they're going to get hit by a hurricane and that would have been flooded too? I mean, it's like, with a football game, you don't want to have a playbook of like 3 plays. You want to have like 5 or 8 or 20 or 30 plays possible, right? I mean, you don't know what the defense is going to throw against you, and you want that flexibility. You want these multiple layers. And to your earlier point, I mean, your data protection, where your backups reside, and how you can access them, that is your last line of defense. If everything else goes wrong, and if your network's been compromised for months, and when the bad actors finally want to pull that ransomware switch, I mean, it all comes down to this. This is your last line of defense if you do it right. And if you have the right partner and the right MSP really leading the way and giving you the right data strategy, that is the best you can hope for.
Yeah, and you don't want to wait for a hurricane for sure. And you guys both
Right.
mentioned these catastrophic events, but in your experience, are those the most common scenarios where a disaster recovery is needed?
More time than not, it's a disgruntled employee who's decided to delete a whole bunch of stuff as they walk out the door, or just somebody who's hit the wrong key, inadvertently deleted that one file that just happens to be the most important file of your whole business. We tend to talk in dramatic terms when we talk about disaster recovery, because it's disaster, right? But sometimes a disaster is, I deleted my Excel file that I used to track customer retention or something, and you need to go back and you need to restore that stuff.
Yeah, I was told that it can be as simple as the simple Control Z on your keyboard.
Yeah.
So I'm also often told that you should test your disaster recovery plan every, I don't know, what do you guys recommend for testing?
A couple times a year.
Okay, so how does that work? How do you go about testing your plan?
Well, you spin up your BDRs, right? Your disaster recovery devices, to make sure that they're there and make sure your stuff is there. You have a you have a test, right? You scramble the jets, you have a mock outage, and you go in to do that. Now, I will say though, and Bryce, weigh in here, because I think this is a real usability piece is the ability to run reports and have alerts when we're not getting good backups, and to be able to monitor that on a regular basis. It's one of the things that we do here at 2W every day, and it is the most critical part of, besides the security alerts, probably the most critical alerts that we manage on a daily basis to make sure that we're getting good backups.
100%. Yeah, and you're making it sound easy, Mark, because you've done this for years. You have the sophistication, the best practices, but the devil's in the details. And I was just at a trade show, and someone was talking about how they weren't happy with a certain solution, and they're like, yeah, every time someone's closing their laptop, then the backup has to start all over again. And we couldn't get these guys for like 3 or 4 weeks because they're just, this one use case was Hollywood producers, and they're just kind of like going from meeting to meeting and opening and closing their laptops, and these things just weren't getting done. And all of a sudden, you've got this huge debt and this huge gap. And if we just talked earlier about what 1 week down could do for your business. What about 3 weeks worth of unbacked up data, failed backups, and then if God forbid something were to happen at that critical moment, you're kind of up the creek. So just these little things that the tech and the expertise and the partnership and MSP and that agreement of what the right DR plan is going to be, what the right incident response plan is going to be, what the timing of these things should be, and what that total service package should be. There's a lot to it. And so, we're really big on trying to send proactive alerts on the health of the backups, the state of the backups, and really reduce the signal to noise ratio. So when things are all good, we don't bug people with it, but when things seem alarming, that's where you focus people's attention and your techs, and you get some tickets going, and you really just hunt down the issue, make sure those backups start seeding properly, and then everything else can click into place, everything else can work together.
That's an interesting point, because you end up, we always talk about, for some reason, hackers always wear hoodies. I don't know why that is. But you think about, the guy in some country that ends in Stan, who's in a basement wearing a hoodie, who's trying to nefariously take your business to its knees. But sometimes you leave your laptop in the pocket, in the plane seat, and you get up and you deplane, and you've lost your laptop. And if you don't have that stuff backed up, that's it. It's over.
When you guys are thinking about the future, and I know we talked about this in terms of the cloud and where we're going to see these solutions when on-premise maybe goes away completely, but what other trends and innovations do you see coming to this field of backups and DR?
What as we talk a little bit more about some upcoming webinars and things we're doing, we're really embracing this concept of hybrid cloud. And of course, there's going to be more around, AI data protection, and are you backing up the kind of institutional data that you're feeding into your AI models? Because if that were to somehow go away overnight, would you kind of cripple yourself in the sense of your lack of ability to do things? And that's all well and good, and everyone kind of wants to focus on the sort of hyper new and fresh things and futuristic kind of stuff. But I think what's interesting is how much we're even seeing in the movement of data. We like to call it data repatriation. Some folks have put so much into the public cloud, and those costs are really going through the roof, that they're saying, how much do we really need there versus, and we put it there out of convenience, obviously, and we thought it was the right thing to do. But now we have at times, different types of recoveries needed, or it's really just not cost effective. We're seeing this data repatriation of, let's bring that stuff back down and let's put it back into local networks. And part of that's the return to office, is happening for folks too. And so there's just lots of things going on. And so I think the future is not really just one way, like a one ticket to everything to the cloud, and we're just going to get all there. It's actually the savvy kind of, best fit scenario, and what data needs to reside where, and how do you want to recover it in that circumstance, and what are the biggest threats to that environment, and how are those going to evolve. So I think things that we're looking at are, just being able to cover more devices. So we just want to continue to round out our offerings. NAS devices is on the kind of nearest term roadmap for us, and that'll be a really good capability to add to what we have. And I think just these other aspects of SaaS and really deepening the integrations to the Azure environment are things that we're pretty focused on now.
Yeah, I think there's a real opportunity to look at an independent backup solution outside of your cloud provider. Whether it's an Azure or Google or whatever, right? To be able to back that up, have it sit someplace else to be protected from a catastrophic failure. Not a month goes by where some cloud service, whether it's AWS or Azure, actually doesn't go down that often. But just put that plug in.
Luckily.
You get some sort of a data failure within the cloud service itself, and to be able to have that backup independently verified in a different area, it's I think that's a real opportunity for some people to really improve their security standing.
Yeah. And so if someone were to have had to totally put up their disaster recovery plan and use it, after it goes into place, how do you measure the success of that? Are there certain metrics that you look out for? Is it just the speed of how fast the systems get up?
We look at, because most of our clients are manufacturers, downtime in manufacturing has a real cost to it. And so we look at downtime.
Yep.
Now, I'm sure Bryce and the Axcient folks, they have all kinds of metrics, and most of which I probably don't understand. But for us, it's how long are you out of business, and how quickly can we get you back in business?
I meant to kind of underline Mark's point earlier, which is the perfect point, and now you said it twice, which is you start with the end in mind. You start with how long can you afford to be offline, down, have the machines down, whatever you want to call it for your business. And that is 100% the right starting point for many, many reasons. First of all, the people that you talk to, the potential clients and the clients you're trying to build relationships further with, that's how they think about things. They don't think about, you're not going to ask them how many petabytes of data are you trying to back up. Like you don't start from that point. And secondly, that is the true type of partner you want to be. You're a business partner. You're a trusted advisor to them. You're not just their data hoarder person. You're the person who is their partner in business to keep them running and to keep their mission running successfully. And then third, of course, that's the best way to have a true sales conversation. Once you've offered the right advice and sat down with them, really strategized together and made the best fit plan, combining your expertise with their knowledge of their business, then you've kind of already had the sales conversation already. You see eye to eye, you're strategically partnered at that point. And there you go through it. So I cannot speak enough about either using an IR, an incident response plan, or disaster recovery plan as part of the initial process and as part of how you build out your stack and build your offering. So I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about kind of some things we look into the back end, but I think it's a really important point that even as we get into some of the nitty gritty of the data protection biz, but Mark, I'm sure you could add way more onto that. You do this every day.
Well, one of the things that gets overlooked, and you kind of hinted at it a little bit, is and it's the boring piece, because we all get geeked out over the technology of, look, we can spin you up and we can, have air gapped backups and all that other stuff. But the fact is that you need a plan. You need in case of data failure, break glass, and you need a policy. And what do you do and how do you do it? And what's because when that happens, because we talk to our clients when they have a catastrophic data failure, or many times what happens is they may be our client on the ERP side, but we don't manage their data per se. We don't manage their network per se. And so they'll call us and everybody's voice is an octave higher, and you can just feel the stress coming through the Teams meeting. And if you have a plan, this is what we do in case this happens, I think you don't waste it. You don't waste as much time. You can, you know exactly what to do. You just follow the plan that has been developed when calmer heads prevail.
That's right. Yeah, in a stressful situation, you want to be able to be moving through the motions of something that was orchestrated and built out, rather than trying to make kind of life or death business decisions in the heat of the moment. That's the last time you want to be doing that.
Yeah.
So
and
I
it'll
100% agree.
And it'll happen, right? I mean, the chances of there being some sort of a data failure, whether it be from natural disaster, lightning strike, nefarious hoodie wearing guy, or a disgruntled employee, is going to happen. And when you have this good backup and you have this plan in place, it almost makes it a non-event. I mean, we've had, you get a data hack and then you shut everything down and then you restore from 20 minutes ago and it's like it never happened.
You're right. That's the point of having that immutable storage, where it literally is a chain-free, unbroken snapshot. And so the kind of industry terms of your recovery time objective of how quickly is it required that I do this? We talked to one partner. We work with a partner, and they relayed this story. One of their clients is a fresh produce trucking company. And so their RTOs are insane. If things go awry and they don't know where to deliver the next order to, they're losing money on a second-by-second basis with refrigerated trucks trying to send produce around the country. Mm-hmm. And then your recovery point objective would be, how much data do we accumulate as a business, on a server by server or workstation by workstation kind of basis, and how unwieldy does that get? And so, is a daily snapshot okay? Is an every 15-minute snapshot really required, because there's just so much overwriting that happens? We need the nearest possible recovery point objective. And so we measure things on that side of how we architect the solution. In our service to our partners, like 2W and others, of course, we obsess over the same types of things that Mark was talking about in that initial call. When there's a voice an octave higher with us, it's usually an MSP or a tech kind of getting through to us. So we obsess over our metrics around the time from the initial call or the chat getting started up to when someone gets on the phone, the time periods between escalations. We categorize all the tickets so that, there's things as simple as like, hey, this workstation failed to back up this morning. We're trying to troubleshoot that. That's not a good thing, and we want to chase it down, but it's not the same as I just had 250 servers ransomware. I need people out here ASAP to help all these bare metal restores, which are going to take hours or days in that case. So spin me up to the cloud now, have the businesses still running, but I need to also restore things back to new hardware. And so we just really obsess over the metrics and the best practices and our staffing and our training around how fast can we field the support, how well can we categorize it, and that ends up being in our CSAT, our customer satisfaction, and our net promoter score metrics at an aggregate, and we obsess over that quite a bit as well. But it's that, and of course we're adding capacity, and we have lots of metrics on how much capacity to add and the throughput and our networking. And so there's lots of obviously geeky data behind the scenes. We'd like to at times zoom out and just really obsess over our customer satisfaction and our NPS and numbers of recoveries performed and the time in which to do them.
Awesome. So what advice do you guys have for any MSPs or end users listening right now?
What I tell our clients is don't cheap out on your disaster recovery, right? It's okay. Ed puts the floppy drives in the NAS device and then takes them home, or for a few $100s a month, you can have a good, solid, reliable disaster recovery plan. And as Bryce said, it's not, it's not anybody can back it up. It's when the data has to come back. Mm-hmm. And do not cheap out on that, because I see this happening. Well, we've got this one thing I bought at the, Office Depot and it will be fine. And then it turns out not being fine. There's no alerting. There's no management of it. This is a really critical piece of a business situation that I think many owners and managers, they kind of overlook it because it's not sexy, right? I mean, mm-hmm. I put in my disaster recovery system and I'm not inviting my neighbors over to check it out.
Yeah.
But it is super critical, and it is the last line of defense. And if you have it, it really makes a disaster recovery or a data disaster, a non-event.
For MSPs, I would just, confidently build your stack, if you want to call it that, your service offering with, cybersecurity, data protection, everything bundled in. It's probably best to kind of present it as a unified front and say, this is what it's going to take to protect your business, nip things in the bud where possible, have a really, really robust last line defense where necessary. And, use whatever analogy you want. Sometimes we call it an insurance policy. You should also, encourage folks to have cyber insurance. So I'm not trying to mix metaphors there, but, just like you think about your own car insurance policy, the only time I tend to think about is when I have to consult it or use it. And that's not the best thing you want to do. You want to really be an expert at what the insurance policy looks like. What are the specs? What are the capabilities of it? And exactly, Mark, your point of pay a few extra dollars. We're such physical beings, obviously. We think about our business as being the people around us and the building we're in and the physical products or even the services that we hand to our customers, which totally makes sense. But in many cases, I'd say 90% of the time of who MSPs are talking to, even if it's a service-based business of people talking to people, your business is your data. Your business is your reputation and your ability to deliver services. But in this day and age, the data is the lifeblood of all of that. And so if you're kind of taking shortcuts there or thinking, well, that's not really my business is my really key employees, which it is, obviously. But once that all gets crippled and in a moment you kind of lose the lifeblood of your business, you'll find out really quickly how much you are the business of data, even if you're a professional services kind of company. So, our mission is to cure data loss and to keep businesses running. So we're not here to promote scare tactics or try to make people, so afraid of something that they want to buy. Anything. We truly just want this to be a non-issue for everyone. To Mark, to your point, when done well, when orchestrated with a really smart, savvy MSP, any SMB or end user or anyone out there can sleep well at night and have peace of mind that in most cases it's going to be a non-issue for you.
Not to mention, if you have a good disaster recovery plan, your cyber insurance is cheaper.
Exactly. They work hand in hand. And there's a whole stack of this that really needs to work in concert. What we do is one part of it, but these are all solvable problems, and MSPs are at the forefront. They're the experts that really know how to craft these on a case-by-case basis, client by client.
I just want to say Axcient is a terrific partner of 2W Technologies and has been for a very, very long time. And Bryce, we appreciate your guys' support and the help that you give our techs and our solution architects. And it's like we said, it's been 10 years now, probably, if not more. And you've helped us through a lot of interesting times. And quite frankly, there are businesses out there today that would not be in business if it were not for the Axcient technology. So anyway, I'd like to thank you for that.
It's super kind of you to say, Mark. You guys are the real heroes, and we listen to you, we take feedback, and all we really had to do is put in the work, but listen to the true experts and be really good partners. And it's your partnership that keeps us going. So it's great that we're both in this together.
Bryce, thank you so much for hopping on. If you didn't get enough of these two, Bryce is turning the tables and having Mark on as a guest on Axcient's MSP Experience Lounge on LinkedIn. So make sure to check that out. I'll put the link into the description. Otherwise, as always, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you later.